Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and I'm here today at Morphy's with a pair of US Navy M1 Garand rifles. We have a Mk2 Mod0 and a Mk2 Mod1. And in case you're getting deja vu here, I did do a previous video on the Mk2 Mod1, but now I have examples of both versions of the rifle. So I'm going to redo the video with a little bit more information and both guns. So when the US adopts 7.62 NATO in the 1950s, the US Army takes a serious look at converting its M1 Garand rifles to the new cartridge. It wouldn't be that difficult. There's not, they don't have to do any really fundamental changes to the mechanics of the rifle. It's essentially just a slightly shorter version of the same cartridge. And it wouldn't be that expensive, but for the Army, the conclusion is it would still be too expensive, and it's not worth doing. So the M1 in its original form is still perfectly adequate for training use, for example, and we have large stockpiles of 30-06 ammunition still left over from World War II. So yeah, the mechanical cost of changing a barrel isn't that great, but when you add in all of the additional logistical costs of gathering up all the rifles, overhauling and servicing them prior to doing the conversion, and then issuing them back out to places, it ends up, according to the Army's calculations, the cost to refurbish a single rifle is about 50% the cost to just buy a brand new M14. So the Army looks at this and goes, we're not even going to bother. For the Navy, however, the calculation was a bit different. The Navy, first off, is pretty happy with the M1s. It doesn't see a whole lot of need to go to M14s. The Navy's not doing all that much with M60s, so it's, these are largely going to be things like onboard complements of armed sailors on ships. It's not that big a deal for them. They would like to have the new ammunition, but they don't really need a new rifle, and they also know that they're not first in line for M14s. The Army is going to be taking a lot of M14s for a while here, and who knows when the Navy will actually be able to get its own. So for the Navy, they decide, yes, we do want to convert our M1s to the new 7.62 NATO cartridge. That'll be great. So in 1959, the Navy Institute, or the Navy facility in York, Pennsylvania, takes on this project of figuring out how to do this. And they decide, you can actually just put a bushing in the chamber. 7.62 NATO and 30-06 are so similar, it's really, one's just a shortened version of the other. If you put a bushing in the front of the chamber that just moves the shoulder back a bit, that'll work. So they hire HP White Labs to design that bushing for them in 1962. HP White Labs does it, provides them drawings, technical details. The Navy makes some samples and sends them off to Springfield Armory for testing. And Springfield Armory looks at them and tries them out and goes, you know what? This idea is terrible, actually. This is a really bad plan because these bushings are coming loose. The idea was you jam it in there tight enough and it'll just stay in place and firing will keep it in place. The reality was they kind of tend to come out a fair amount. So Springfield tells this to the Navy, and the Navy's reaction is something in between, it's not that big a deal, or la 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 la. The Navy decides to go ahead with this conversion plan anyway. They hire AMF, American Machine and Foundry, to do 15,050, if I remember the number correctly, conversions of Navy M1s using these bushings from HP White Labs. And AMF starts doing them, and they start issuing them out, and Navy guys start using them. And guess what happens? You'll never believe this. The bushings start coming out, and it's really kind of a problem. Ultimately, by I think late 1964, the Navy's had enough of this issue. The Naval Weapons Facility at Crane tries to fix it. They come up with this plan to groove the chambers before they put in the bushings, not Crane putting in the bushings, but before AMF, or also, by the way, Harrington and Richardson, who gets in a contract to do another 10,000 of these conversions. If you groove the end of the chamber first, it's supposed to make it a little stickier, more friction, it'll keep the bushing in. It helps, but it doesn't solve the problem. The Navy finally has enough of this, and they're like, all right, fine, this stupid thing isn't working. We'll just put brand new barrels in, which is the solution that they should have done in the first place. So they place an order with Springfield Armory for 30,000 barrels. Springfield produces those in 1965 and 1965 and 1966. When those barrels, the contracts with AMF and H&R to do the conversions are switched over from, instead of putting in bushings, put in this brand new entire barrel. And that becomes the Mk2 Mod1. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Let me show you the other couple elements of these conversions and how to identify these two guns. I'll start with our Mk2 Mod1 here. There are the receiver markings on the heel. It's just a sort of random standard M1, no markings back there. Now, in addition to the chamber bushing, the other thing that the Navy did was install these little white spacers in the front of the magazine well. A standard M1 clip will hold 7.62 NATO rounds just perfectly fine without any alteration, and you don't actually need a spacer like this in the gun. The clip will position itself properly back here, but having a spacer in there is both a visual indicator that, remember, this is a 7.62 NATO caliber gun, and it prevents you from accidentally installing or mistakenly loading a clip of 30-06. What happens if you do that? Well, it's going to jam. The round will go into the chamber, but it'll hit that short bushing. It'll stick out a bit. It'll give you a malfunction. It won't be anything catastrophic. The M1 does have a good out-of-battery safety, so it's not going to detonate the cartridge out of battery, but it would be awkward and clunky. And so they put in these little white bushings just as a reminder and a spacer. They also slightly opened up the gas port to accommodate the pressure curve of 7.62 NATO, as it's different from 30-06. That's something you really can't notice. You have to get in there with a micrometer to detect it properly. The important information is all here on the barrel. So this is an original World War II barrel. It has a production date here of August 1944. And when that chamber sleeve was installed, this was one that was done by H&R, so they engraved H&R on the barrel and 7.62 NATO, and then filled it with white paint. That white paint is pretty typical of these guns. And there, by the way, is the bottom of that en-bloc clip spacer bushing. And that's it. That's all there is to these conversions. Here's the receiver heel of the Mod 1 version of the gun. Once again, there are no external markings back here indicating that this is converted. There's no special run of guns that were converted. It's just another essentially at random M1 Garand rifle. And then on this guy, we have barrel marks that are slightly different. So this is one that was done by AMF. So they marked AMF and 7.62 NATO. However, because this is a brand new production barrel, we have some additional markings. Springfield also marked 7.62mm on the barrel. So you get the original Springfield marking and the AMF conversion marking. You can also very easily identify the new Springfield barrels because they're marked Springfield. They have a drawing number here and a production date. So this is December 1965. There are actually two different drawing numbers on Springfield's 7.62 barrels. This is 11,010,457, and those are for the barrels that were made in 1965. The barrels made in 66 actually had a different number, 11,686,514. So you'll find one of those two numbers here, and it will correspond with a 65 or a 66 production date, and then your additional installation marks from either AMF or H&R. This program really is sort of a comedy of errors. The Navy came up with a dumb plan in the first place. They were then told emphatically that this is in fact a dumb plan, and here's why, and here's the evidence, and they went ahead and did it anyway, and then shockingly had to change it. And all for pretty much nothing, because these rifles ended up seeing fairly little actual service use. They were mostly used for training and competition shooting, match shooting. Eventually some of these would be used as trophies for shooting competition prizes, but very little actual shipboard use. A lot of the guns just stayed as 30-06 M1s and then were eventually replaced by M14s when the Navy did in fact start getting new production M14s. So they did it badly, and they didn't even really need to do this in the first place. Now, looking at them today, these rifles are actually fairly easy to fake. The Mk2 ones, or the Mod0 ones that had a chamber bushing, well, they're just random existing M1s that have chamber bushings added and had that 7.62 mark added to the outside of the barrel. So if you can find a chamber bushing, little engraving on the barrel, not a difficult gun to forge. As for the Mod 1s with the brand new Springfield barrels, well, not all of Springfield's barrel production actually ended up in rifles. Some of it ended up sold as scrap or surplus, and some of those barrels are out there on the commercial market. And if someone gets one of those barrels, it's also really quite easy to just install it in, again, any random M1 and claim it's a Navy conversion. There's no specific serial number database of what guns the Navy had converted. So if you're a serious collector and you want to make sure that you have a legitimate Navy example, well, the easy way to do that is to get one that came out of the Civilian Marksmanship Program, the CMP, because a lot of them did come out of the CMP. They have paperwork that shows their Navy provenance. Both of these, in fact, are that sort of rifle. These are both ex-CMP guns with that provenance. So if you're interested, take that route. But otherwise, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks to Morphy's for giving me access to these two. It's nice to have both examples here in the same place at the same time so that I can show them to you side by side. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.